Hello, everybody. This is the Filmmaker Mixer podcast, and today we talk with Alyssa Carson. She is an astrobiologist, a science communicator, a researcher, an aspiring astronaut, and also the subject of Driven to Explore, which is a documentary that follows her traveling across country in parallel with NASA's Artemis 2 mission. So, Alyssa, welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to chat with you. We talk to a lot of documentary filmmakers, but we don't often get to talk to people who are the talent in a documentary, so this should be fun. And I know you're working with my cousin Greg on a few things, so I'm not going to hold that against you. I know he does some YouTube and some social media stuff for you, but I'm just kidding. Greg's a good guy. He actually introduced us, so shout out to him. So tell me about this documentary. How did you get involved?
Yeah, this was such a unique documentary, and I was kind of very excited to be a part of it and kind of be in from, I guess, the initial plannings of it, because it was a very fun idea to do this parallel road trip in tandem with the Artemis 2 mission, but it was also a very, very massive feat. So shout out to the director, Sarah Moshman. She did an amazing job. And then we had an all-female crew. There was only 6 of us in total that kind of did this full journey together. And it was just really cool. I heard about the idea of, trying to do this tandem trip, and I really liked the concept, especially being able to interview impactful women in STEM kind of along the way. I am not new to road tripping, so I was pretty down from that side of things. And of course, I wanted to see the Artemis 2 launch regardless. So I was just kind of in it from the start and was just really excited to help bring it to life.
Well, I want to get into the documentary a little bit more in some more detail, but before we do that, what is it that you love so much about space and science and technology? What draws you to it?
Yeah, I think that from an early age, I was super invested in the space industry. I got really curious about space, the types of jobs that there are in space, and maybe what ways I would best contribute to the space industry. But I think what I've always loved about it is that I truly think that there's something for everyone within the space industry. Even if you aren't super involved, even if you're just a little bit interested, I think there's really something, whether it's as going far as to black holes and other galaxies, or maybe you're interested just in kind of the human aspect of it and human missions to the moon. And there's just so many facets to it that I think it really opens the door for opportunity for so many people to have a little bit of interest. And I think that's really special and unique to an industry. And I think that that's really where a lot of my, I guess, science communication came from as well, because I was really wanting to share a lot of what was actually going on in the space industry to more people, because sometimes there certainly can be a disconnect. I'll talk to people and I'll tell them all these cool things that NASA and all these other space agencies are doing, and no one has no idea. So I think it's really cool to be able to showcase some of the cool stuff that's happening.
Well, with regards to the documentary, what do you think were the biggest challenges in setting this up and doing this cross-country mission in parallel to the Artemis? What was the biggest challenge, do you think?
Well, challenge number 1 was that we had no idea it was going to launch. That was certainly the biggest challenge. I think we all had a bit of a sigh of relief once the launch actually happened, because then we could actually make plans. Prior to the launch happening, there really was no concrete plan of what day we would be in which city, because if the launch got pushed a day, or if we all traveled to Florida and then the whole thing got scrubbed, a lot was left to the unknown. And of course, trying to set up interviews while not knowing which day we would interview them on was certainly a bit challenging. So really anything before launch was chaos. Just we were at the whim of whatever was happening with Artemis 2. Luckily, Artemis 2 had a beautiful launch and was not only launched on the first day of its launch window, it launched right at the beginning of the window and had almost as perfect of a launch as you could get. So we certainly got very lucky there and were able to kind of make our plans from that point forward. But I think logistically that was very challenging. And me, who knew kind of the most about the space industry, and I was trying to relay a lot of this to everyone else, and I kept saying, space is challenging, things can happen, there can be delays, and then it ended up being a perfect launch. So it was a pleasant surprise to kind of help in our journey.
And were you involved in picking the people that you got to meet with along the way, or did the producers do that? How did you set all those interviews and interactions up?
Yeah, it was a bit of both. We worked together. I worked a lot with the director. I suggested some names and some contacts of people I knew in the space industry who I knew had done some really cool stuff. And it was a bit of both. She had found some people who were really inspiring to her and, kind of connected some of the dots. So it was kind of fun in that way because it was a mix of people who I'd known previously or had previous relationships with and got to hear maybe more in detail about their stories. But then I also got to meet a lot of new faces. And so it was very nice to kind of have a little bit of both for the sake of the documentary. But it was very cool. We talked to 9 women during the actual trip. So certainly a lot of interviews and miles to cover there, but they were all so amazing. And we had such a wide range of people who were older in the space industry who had been working in it for years and years. We also had some young people who were maybe right at the start of their careers, early scientists, people who worked from the technical engineering side, astronauts. So there was really such a variety, and I think that really aided in the storytelling.
When you get to meet such a variety of people in such an interesting field, I'm sure there's a lot of wonderful conversations and new things you discover. Was there anything that you came across in talking with them that surprised you? Maybe a story that inspired you or a story that changed your perspective a little bit on the subject?
Yeah, totally. I think that the space industry, as I mentioned, it's so broad and that comes with a lot of cool things as well, because even someone like me who reads up on the space industry pretty frequently or tries to keep up with it, there's still so many of these jobs that I don't really know much about. I don't know the intricate details of each and every profession. And so being able to hear from their story and their eyes, what it's like to work in that area of the space industry and what challenges there are and what successes or what recent news is relevant to them. And honestly, we tried to connect it a lot to the Artemis mission that was in en route to the moon or coming back from the moon, and hearing how human spaceflight maybe plays a role in their jobs, and just kind of hearing all these different factors was really, really inspiring. Even a lot of the young women too, we met with a couple young ladies who were kind of graduating high school and hearing about some of their projects that they've come up with and they've been really successful in, I think is also really inspiring just to see already what the next generation is thinking of and accomplishing. And so I think as a whole, all around, it was so fun. One of the really cool interviews that we did was with Dr. Anna Fisher, and she was really one of the first, the group of the first female astronauts selected, and she was the first mom to go to space. And so hearing her story in that time period in reflectance to what was currently happening in space with the Artemis 2 mission was a really unique comparison and cool story to hear the almost duality between the first women and then also with Christina Koch being the first woman to travel to the moon. So a lot of really impactful moments throughout the trip.
Well, it is a film, and films are always unpredictable. And also, you're on a road trip. So anything comical, funny, unusual that happened on the trip that's like, we better not put this in the documentary?
I don't know. I think all in all, I think the trip went honestly as successful as I think it could have ever gone. I was pleasantly surprised about how smooth everything was. Even just down to, we didn't really hit much traffic, which was surprising because we made it across the whole country without a massive traffic jam, which was helpful to us when we were on time crunches. I think just the actual worry of getting to each spot was always kind of there. And I think that added maybe some to the complexity because there were so many interviews and so many places that we wanted to go to and wanted to do, but being able to kind of tie those in to realistic driving schedules was certainly a challenge as we went along. But, I think we've got to do so many fun things other than the interviews. I got to go up. One of my interviews was with this aviator. And so we did a little flight around the Houston area, which was really cool. We went scuba diving as part of the film, got to try on a pressure suit. So there's loads of little touches, I guess, sprinkled in there of cool little adventures, almost like these side quests that we went on that almost went in tandem with the interviews, but also added some just really cool visuals along the way. So I think that was really fun. So I kind of got thrown in the water and the air. I was in every aspect throughout the road trip, but certainly nothing I wasn't used to. So it was kind of fun to bring a lot of those aspects of myself as well into the film.
So talent and stunt woman, I guess.
I guess so, yeah. No, nothing too crazy on the stunt side, but I guess you could say that.
Well, when you're meeting young people who are interested in space and technology and interstellar flights, I'm just curious, what do you think inspires you by talking to them?
Yeah, I think I see myself so much in a lot of these young women who are interested in the space industry. And so I think I really just am always about encouraging them to continue following their dreams. And I think I get inspired by just seeing how intelligent and how impactful they can be. I think that was something that I've always pushed for. I think young people bring such unique perspectives to any industry, but with the space industry, when there's so many problems to solve and so much unknown to it, it's really important to, I think, welcome all these new ideas. And so I think that's really the inspiring part, is seeing the impact that they're actually able to make despite their age. And when I was growing up, I feel like at moments you could almost get written off for just being too young and naive and not knowing anything. And so I think I love being able to see other young women really paving the way within their specific field, and really proving that they are just as intelligent and just as capable of doing really cool STEM work.
Were you involved in the edit at all? Did you have eyes on the project as it was being put together in the edit room?
Yeah, so right now the project is in post-production.
It's in post now. Okay.
Right. It's still in the works. I'm not, I guess, as involved in that aspect of it. I've been obviously keeping in touch with everyone and getting updates as the project progresses. So we are hopeful, I think, around sometime this summer to have a full formal trailer for it. So kind of waiting and really looking forward to seeing that. But yeah, as far as post-production, they're still getting everything put together from it. And yeah, it's crazy to think, even in my mind, that the trip was still only in April, because it already feels like so long ago. But I keep reminding myself that it really hasn't been that long since since the trip.
When you're on a film production, it's stressful. There's always a time crunch, and you're going through these experiences, but you're also kind of bonding, with everybody. Was it kind of sad when you finished up and wrapped?
Yeah, it was really funny. We were all weirdly bonded in a way. We were from so many different areas, and I think having kind of our all-female crew as we were interviewing all these women, I think it was just really impactful because I went on the road trip with my best friend Grace, and her background is all ocean engineering. So I was kind of showing her a little bit of that side and being able to share this road trip with her. So it was obviously nice to see her. And then all of these people from the film industry. I think it was really unique to hear some of their perspectives and their stories about, being women in film production and how that is. And so, we had so much time together just from driving and all the days together. And so I think that was certainly a very bonding experience. And it was really cool, I think, just to share all of our stories around. Even though a lot of the focus of everything we were talking about was space, it was kind of refreshing to also hear everyone's unique stories.
So my buddy Merle was a big NASA fan and also a film fanatic. He used to write for Film Threat back in the day, and when we were growing up, he always had a poster of the space shuttle on his wall. So when I found out you were going to be on the show, I reached out to him and I said, "What would you like to ask her?" And he said, the road to get involved in the space industry is so long. There's so much studying, so much you have to do. Because it's so difficult and such a long road, how do you stay inspired? How do you stay focused?
Yeah, I think that I've always been really focused on almost breaking down my dreams and my goals into smaller tasks because it's true, having that aspiration from a young age, you can't achieve it overnight, right? It's going to be 10, 15 years until it actually comes to completion. And so there's a few things there. I think one, I learned early on that, an astronaut isn't necessarily a career in of itself. All astronauts, they're engineers or they're scientists or they're doctors or there's some underlying career path. And so that was really my step one, right? What did I actually want to do in space? If I were to have the opportunity to go to space, what would I want to do up there? And that was really kind of my starting point. And then from there, I really started molding my dream around things I could control. I knew one day I wanted to get to the point of applying to the astronaut selection process, but really after that point, everything's out of my control. I can't tell them to choose me. And so I think I really started molding my dream around, okay, this job that now I'm going for, not necessarily astronaut, but this job that I've chosen. And I fell in love with the field of astrobiology and started working on becoming an astrobiologist, got really involved in research and fell in love with wanting to do the research side of everything. And I think that that kind of slowly molded some of these smaller goals, which a lot of it also just comes down to education, since you can't apply to the astronaut selection process until you hold at least a master's degree. And so it was really just continuing my education as a priority and then trying to figure out if there's any other things that I could put on my resume that would one day help.
Did this documentary experience make you want to explore doing other documentaries?
I mean, I think I had a really great time with it. I think it really fit a lot of the messages that I'm always encouraging people about, and there was a lot of shared ideas there, and I think that was really inspiring to see how that gets put out. And I'm really just hopeful that young girls will be able to watch something like this, watch the story of Christina Cook and her inspirational flight on Artemis 2, connect that to a lot of career paths down here on Earth. And I think that's really important because a lot of the time when young kids see these successful astronauts or even Christina going all the way to the moon, it feels unattainable sometimes. It feels so far away from what they can achieve. And so I hope that by sharing her story along with people who are here on Earth also doing really cool stuff really shows them that that career path and that dream is possible if they're interested in it. And I would totally be interested in sharing a lot of these stories again in other formats.
Do you think we'll have a sustained human presence in space down the road?
I think it's certainly coming. I think that really is the next progression of the space industry, the next steps, especially with the Artemis program and their format and what they've been laying out has been to start having more regular missions to the moon, certainly having a bigger look at deep space. So going back to the moon, maybe eventually onto Mars. Currently, really a lot of the scheme is around going back to the moon and sending humans there. There's also the goal of establishing permanent presence on the moon. So whatever that might look like, whether it's a habitat, whether it's some sort of research lab, something to actually do science on the moon. So I think that there really is a lot of opportunity, especially with how many missions we're about to see going to the moon. And I think that is going to be a big inspiration to a lot of people. I think back when the Apollo days were really prominent, there was a lot of inspiration to want to work in the space and STEM fields, and I think this is going to be very similar. So I certainly think that human permanent presence is coming, firstly with the moon, and then I think building off of that, we'll see if Mars is next in line, but certainly later down the road.
Well, before we let you go, when you're laying awake at night, what's the burning question that you have about the universe? What's the one thing you'd like an answer to?
Well, as an astrobiologist, I certainly have to say life. That's certainly everything the field is about, and the possibility of life in other places, whether it's within our solar system or within the universe. Me specifically, my research and my areas of interest certainly surround the mix between microbiology and space. So if we're talking about places in our solar system, more than likely we'd be looking for microbial life. So maybe not quite the exciting aliens that most people would be expecting, but certainly would be a huge scientific discovery to find even microscopic organisms somewhere. So I think that's really been my biggest area of curiosity, just because we do have some pretty cool contenders in our own solar system of places that really do seem to be a bit habitable for organisms that we know of Earth. And I think it's going to be amazing to actually get some of the missions that are set up to arrive to those places and maybe get those questions answered.
Well, for people who want to follow what you're up to with the documentary and with everything else that you're doing, how do they track you down? Are you a social media? I know you're a social media person, so how do they follow you?
Yeah, so all of my socials are under at NASABlueberry, and then the documentary also has a film, which is the Driven to Explore film. So you can search both of those to keep up with the story.
Awesome. Well, Alyssa, it's been a pleasure. Don't hang up. I want to chat just for a second, but it's been fun. We should chat again soon.
Yeah, totally.
Thank you for listening to the Filmmaker Mixer podcast, a podcast created and hosted by filmmakers Jeff Stolen and Andrew Lamping and produced by Melody Lopez.
Our theme song was composed by Stephen D. Bennett.